Hello, my name is Ethan Wagoner. I am the Director of Bands at Derby Middle School, and today I will be going over the KBA Middle Level Honor Band drum parts, so snare drum and bass drum mainly for your band pieces. First of all, congrats on making this group. It's a very high achievement. You should be very proud of that. We're going to start today with just some basics. I want to go over a few things that I teach my students and things that I think will be important for all these different pieces that we're playing to keep in mind. So, first thing is, we're going to go over a lot of snare drum for most of this video. And at the end, I'll double back and go over some bass drum fundamentals quickly, as well as potentially some crash cymbals, if there's time. Our snare drum setup, I'm sitting down because I have a short stand, but you'll obviously be standing. It's important that wherever you are at, as far as your standing height, that the top of the rim needs to be in line with your wrist when your arm is at your side. Just a good way to make sure that it's the appropriate height and that you're not playing too high or too low. I also like to play with the strainer, which you can see is right here. That turns the snares on and off. I always play with that right in front of me, so that way I'm playing along the snares underneath, because with the snare drum, there's wires that stretch across the bottom. We want to make sure that when we play, either at the edge or in the center, that we are playing on those wires, not on the edge or anything like that. So, let's talk about the grip of the snare drum sticks. First thing I teach my students, I teach several different things, is that you have to find a third of the way up the drumstick, start with just your pointer finger and your thumb, and you want to make a plus sign. So your thumb is going to be straight up and down, your pointer fingers will be horizontal, and it'll make a plus or a cross or whatever along the drumstick. It should look just like that. Do this evenly with both hands, make sure you're holding at the same spot. Other three fingers wrap around, just like that. You do not ever squeeze the stick. You might add a little bit of pressure on buzz rolls, but overall we keep things wrapped around the stick, but never squeeze, because if we squeeze the stick, our wrists will lock up. And so we don't want any tension when we're playing. We want to be as relaxed as possible. Fingers wrapped around, third way up stick, start with your plus, wrap the back fingers around. There's a term I use called flat hands, which means that when we're playing or holding our sticks above the drum, that I could rest a quarter right here and it would not fall off my hand. So it's important that you keep your hands flat, not turning in like this, because that's kind of a different technique. We want to isolate it to what I call a knocking motion that uses your wrist to play. So it should bend right about here on the wrist, just like so, and pretend you're knocking on a door. That is the correct motion that we're going to be using to play most of our notes for this. And then finally is the angle at which we hold our sticks. If you know what a 90-degree angle is, it's like the corner of a square. I hold mine just a little bit in at about 70 degrees, and that's my setup on playing snare drum. A good maybe quick warm-up to make sure that we're on the same page for how we approach the drum is to do what I call 8 on a hand, and I actually do a very specific version of this. I start with 8 on my right hand, just 8 eighth notes, then 8 on the left, then I do 8 at the same time to make sure my hands are matching the approach to the drum, and then finally I end with alternating 16th notes to make sure that my hands are even. A lot of what we talk about today will be making sure our sounds are even, that we're doing appropriate dynamics, and as well as stickings, but the stickings will be to come. So here's a good exercise for you. I'll play it for you once. It's just what I described. It starts with the right hand. Left. Then both. And alternate. As I do that, I'm making sure my hands are nice and even, staying very relaxed, doing the knocking motion like we just talked about. Good. Our first piece that we're going to be going over today is Destiny Fanfare. We're going to talk about different concepts as we play through it, but I'm going to be going over the snare drum part for this piece first. A lot of repeated 8th note and 16th note rhythms, which is going to be good because it helps us focus on time, as well as making sure we can bring out accents when needed, as well as all of our other technique items. There's one rhythm I see a lot, and it's counted like this. You can find it for the first time, I believe, in measure 10. It's kind of like this. 1 and a 2 and 4 and. If I click and count, 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4 and. Sticking on this is going to be very important. Whenever you have 8th note rhythms, right hands generally will be on the downbeat, so 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, while your left hand will be on the ands. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So when playing 8th note rhythms, 1 and 2 and 3 this is my right hand. Notice that that is always going to be playing on the downbeats. 1 and 2 and 4. If I ever have a rest on a downbeat, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and my left hand keeps going, playing the ands like normal. And that will affect how we play this measure. We have one anda to start, and the sticking for that is going to be right, right, left. So my sticking in measure 10, which we see frequently, is 1 and 2, right, right, left, left, right, left. Here's that rhythm, measure 10. Right, right, left, rest, left, right, left. Here it is a little faster. Notice my left hand is generally keeping going, keeping motion as it plays. I don't have much time for pause because it's only an eighth rest, so it only gets half a beat. As we play measure 11, you also have that one frequently. We have 4 anda at the end. My sticking for that measure will be right, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. Everything else in this piece is pretty straightforward. I don't believe we have any buzz rolls, which is great. It takes out that element for us. So I'm going to play a portion of this, just so that way you can get to hear what it sounds like. Up to tempo, I'll actually start at a slower tempo, and then double back and do a faster one. So here is, let's go measure 1 to 22 at a slow tempo. 1, 2, ready, go. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Pretty self-explanatory. There are a few accents like in measure 1 and measure 6. Those have the little, looks like the little greater than sign. You have to play those louder and with a larger stick height versus everything else being generally softer. You could hear I did a decrescendo as written in measure 10 and measure 11. One thing I always tell my percussion students, especially in band class, is that if you don't do the dynamics, the rest of the band will not do them either. So make sure that you're paying attention to the dynamics as you play through this. Here it is at a faster tempo, same chunk as measures 1 through 21. So I'll be stopping at 22. Here's tempo. And 1, 2, ready, go. 3, 4, 1, 2. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 3. Notice dynamics were in the entire time. All these rhythms, like I said, are pretty repetitive. They continue throughout. There's maybe one other measure or two other measures that I see I want to go over on the snare drum part for this piece. It's measure 37 and 38. The sticking will be right, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. The dynamic is mezzo piano, but you have accents on 1, the and of 2, and 4 that are going to help kind of emphasize and give this more of a groove instead of being just kind of a boring rhythm. So here's what it sounds like slow with the accents. I would encourage you to write in the sticking of each accent in this measure. And wherever you feel you need to write in stickings, please do it because it's going to help you play faster and in time and correctly in the long run. Here's measure 37 and 38 at a slow tempo. This is the tempo, 1 and 2, and ready and go. Here it is at a fast tempo. 1, 2, ready, go. Just like that. Cool. Our next piece we're going to go over for snare drum is going to be Dark Ride. I would say the elements that this piece adds in that are going to be Things to watch out for is repeat signs, so making sure that we're following when it says first and second time only. It's faster tempos, so making sure we're moving our sticks quickly and have our stickings written in. Lots of repetition like the last one, which is good. Then we also have buzz rolls. And so you'll notice anytime you have a roll, it's written as a larger note figure, so a quarter note or a half note with the 3 lines through it, and it's tied to another note. Whenever you see one of these rolls, I want you to turn it into 16th notes and buzz those 16th notes. For example, if you have a quarter note roll, you will want to turn that into 4 16th notes and buzz those 16th notes. So let's say a quarter note roll tied to another quarter note. Let's look at measure 35, for example. We're going to turn that first quarter note roll into 1 E-enda and buzz those 16th notes, and then play the 8th notes after. It'll sound like this. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. Now, what you might do is play the 16th note pattern without the buzzes to make sure your hands are moving the appropriate speed. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. And then add in the buzzes. 1, 2, and 4, and 1. Quick note about how to play rolls. When you are playing a roll, let go with your back few fingers. I like to keep them all touching each other too, just to keep them close in case I have to navigate back and forth between normal notes and rolls. And then you're going to press down onto the drum head to get this smooth. You don't want it to be very loud, because if you do, then your roll won't sound smooth. I always think about it's like a cat that's kneading. If you have cats, I have a cat, so that's, yes, it applies to me. But when they push down, they put a decent amount of pressure on whatever they're kneading, but they're very gentle. They're not swatting at it. So if we have a roll that we're playing, I want the stick heights to be very low and a very gentle approach, versus that does not sound like a roll that we were wanting. We want it to be like one long tear of paper. So another roll, for example, that is longer, look at measure 48. I'll do 48, 49, 50, and 51. I'll play these rolls slow for you. I've turned all of these rhythms into 16th notes. So, for example, this half note roll in 48, I'll go 1 E-enda, 2 E-enda, 3 and 4 and. It'll sound like this. Faster tempo. This is not quite up to tempo. Notice that it starts to connect together. I keep it very low. I'm going to play at that tempo, 48 through 51 right now. Feel free to play along with me. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. And there is a crescendo throughout those 4 measures. Here's a faster tempo. And 1, 2, ready, go. You do have a speed up in the music for these 4 measures. It's going to depend on what the director wants when we play that, but be prepared that the rolls, since they are a faster rhythm, they're 16th notes, they're going to want to slow down. So we have to play them fairly quickly. I'm going to play measures 52 to the end to give you kind of an example of how this is going to sound. I think this covers a number of rhythms that we have in this song. So here's 52 to the end. I'll do it once slow, and then once fast. Notice the sticking on these 8th note rhythms, like we talked about in the last piece, is that your right hand will play all the downbeats. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Your left hand plays every and. So my sticking at 52 is going to be right, left, rest. Left, right, left, right, left. If I play it, sounds like this. Up to tempo. It just allows your hands to keep moving nice and easy. So here's 52 to the end at this tempo. It will be faster, but here's a slow tempo first. Feel free to play along and pause the video as needed to practice this stuff. 1, 2, ready, go. 2, 3, 4. And here it is at a faster tempo. 1, 2, ready, go. Otherwise, this piece is pretty straightforward. Just make sure that you're paying attention to when you are supposed to be playing versus when you're supposed to be resting. And if it says second time only versus first time only. Let's go to the next piece. Softly Speaks the Night. This one is not a lot to it. Rhythms are pretty self-explanatory. Not a lot of snare drum parts for this. The main thing is our rolls at a slow tempo. So, in our last piece, we played all our rolls as 16th notes. I actually want you to try and play this song with what we call sextuplet based rolls. And basically what that means is every beat you're going to fit 6 notes. Since we are at a slow tempo, nice and slow, it's going to be pretty easy to do that. I want you to think this. If this is your tempo, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. Say that with me, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. I'm looking at measure 20 on Softly Speaks the Night. It's going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, because we have 4 beats of roll. If we play that together, I'll count as I play this time. Ready, and 1. You can take that, once you've practiced that a number of times, make sure your hands are moving at the correct speed, and practice buzzing it. The reason we want to do sextuplets instead of 16th notes is because the tempo is just too slow to do 16th notes. If we did 16th notes, it'd sound like this. And it just sounds too choppy. So practice sextuplets. You can do that with me now, and then we'll practice rolling sextuplets. Here's sextuplets first time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Play it and go. And now let's try buzzing it. 1, 2, ready and go. And this one, notice I'm starting at the edge of the drum and moving towards the center. That allows my dynamics to be more contrasting, which is what you always want when you're playing. So here's the part at measure 20 again. Notice I made it as smooth as I possibly could, having the buzzes overlap each other. That's what we want when we're playing rolls. And that applies to anything. We have several moments where your rolls actually don't connect. That means that there's a slight space between them. So look at measure 33 and 34, for example. We have a whole note roll, then a half note roll, and another half note roll that is tied to an eighth note. So that's the only roll that's going to connect to the downbeat. Otherwise, you have to separate the rolls. Here's what it's going to sound like when you put it all together. 33 and 34, the snare drum part. 2, ready, and... Notice there is a slight gap between. As long as you're playing quietly and smoothly, it shouldn't have too much of a separation that it is noticeable or too noticeable or causes issues with the sound. Same in 36. You don't want to connect that roll to beat 4. So you have 1, 2, a separation between. I'm still thinking sextuplets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, but I'm just not playing all of my sextuplets in that measure. More like 5 of my 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So listen, here's 36. Ready, and 1, 2. I'm going to play 33 to the end once for you. That way you can get a sense of it. The main thing to gather from this is not connecting rolls that aren't written that way, as well as playing sextuplet based rolls, which is maybe new for you, and if so, good. That's a good skill to learn because it will apply to a lot of things that you play. Here's 33 to the end. 1, 2, ready, and... 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2. 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2. just like that. This one is all about smooth rolls, making sure they overlap. Want it to be just waves of sound. And sextuplet bass is the easiest way to kind of grasp that, make sure that we're playing the appropriate amount of beats for each roll. Good, let's go to our last song, El Camino to Anaheim. This one has a lot of accents on the ands, so we're gonna talk about that. I would go through and make sure that you can tell which beat or which note that the accent is supposed to line up on. So for example, measure 5 kind of looks in between the two notes. Make sure that you're playing the accent on the and, which is going to be your left hand. All of our sticking rules apply. That's why I like to teach them, because they apply to every rhythms that you play. Stickings are almost always like a good way to organize our rhythms. So, excuse me, let's look at measure 5. The rhythm is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But if I put in the accents, it sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And all those accents that are on the ands are going to be on the left hand. It'll sound like this. 1 and 2 and. The more you can lift your left hand in between, because this will be a faster tempo, the easier it's going to be to play these accents in succession. You have a number of syncopated rhythms, so this will take some practice, especially to get the accents under your hands. I'm going to play measures 1 through 4 to give you a sense of what the snare drum part sounds like here. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and. I actually went on to measure 5 a little bit. I'm going to play measure 5 to measure 12 to also give you a sense of what the accents are going to sound like. Here's the tempo. 1, 2, ready, and. Watch out for the first ending, because you're actually going to trade hands for which one plays the accent. It's going to be right, right, left, right, right, right. And I play the last 2 as right. So here's the first ending, measure 12 on the snare drum part. And it's going to take practice getting used to those switches, but you have a lot of repetition, which is a good thing. Number 14 on the rim, make sure you play on the far side of the rim. It's just a little bit easier than trying to play up here. Pretty self-explanatory and simple pattern. Measure 30, you'll notice a bunch of quarter note flams. I would recommend playing them all right hand. You can alternate, but playing right hand just ensures that they're going to have even sounds. Make sure when you play a flam, and these flams are going to be softer, mezzo forte-ish, I imagine that the director will not want them to be too loud. But make sure you have one stick that's higher than the other. In this case, it's my right stick is higher than the left. And then I'm almost playing them at the same time, but it's just a little bit off. So if it's literally exactly the same time, we're missing that sort of flam element. It gives it more depth, kind of a bigger sound, and a different texture, which is cool. I'm going to play measure 22 to the end on this one. About this tempo. Here you go. Here's measure 22. Feel free to follow along. Sticking rules are all the same. Just watch out for the accents. 1, 2, ready, go. That pretty much covers all the snare drum parts for this concert and for the KBA mid-level honor band. So I will be adding videos of me playing bass drum just to show some technique things, but hopefully you got something from this and can take it and apply it to some other things you play. Remember to practice. Practice obviously makes perfect. I'm sure your band teachers told you that. I tell my students that all the time. Good luck, happy practicing, and I hope you enjoy this experience because it's going to be a good one. All right, hi guys. Ethan Wagoner, Mr. Wagoner back, director at Derby Middle School. Just want to give you a few basics on bass drum. I'm not going to go over any of the parts. I just want to tell you about some technique things to make sure that your bass drum playing is good to go, and some general rules that I follow. So, first off, this is concert bass drum. I have mine tilted. You will not always see them tilted. I like it tilted because I think it's easier to play and muffle and kind of change things as needed. Here. If it's all the way on the side, I feel like I have to kind of lean over more. Some people like that to muffle the drum with their leg, which we'll talk about in a second. But this is how I like mine set up. If you like this that way too, that's fine. Here's my bass drum beater. You'll have one probably similar to this. It's pretty heavy, but you treat it really just like a snare drum. Make sure that when you're playing your bass drum that it's going straight into the head as if it was playing a snare drum, not angling weird this way or that way or doing weird things like that. I see a lot of students play and have like an odd motion with their bass drum mallet. So don't do that for you. Make sure it's going straight into the drum every time. This one has a muffling pad on it. You may have a towel on yours. It's totally up to the director as far as if they want to do that. I think it just depends. I think you can get all the sounds that you need really without it. Because generally you want it to ring maybe a little bit more than what you're used to. When you're playing bass drum, have one hand muffling, I would say about halfway between the rim and the center, and pushing down decently hard. Hands spread like this. The reason is because the bass drum rings a lot when you play it. It sounds like this, which is a cool sound, very thundery. However, if you play that over and over, which I don't even know if you can tell in the video, but in this room, it's really washy sounding and really boomy. It's not giving the effect that we want, which is sort of like this boom, 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 this emphasis to our low sounds and more of like an impact. And so if it gets really washy, we're not getting the effect we want. So that's why we muffle. I would say I generally muffle on anything quarter notes or faster. So quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes if you have them, make sure you're muffling them. That way they don't bleed into each other. So if I have a part that's entirely quarter notes, I would make sure I'm standing behind the drum, have one hand muffling, and then I play not directly in the center, but a little bit off center, just like this. Depending on how your bass drum is tuned, it might be really boomy. So make sure you're watching the director to make sure you know how loud or soft to play. That is a very common instrument that can either be too loud or too soft. It just depends. If you have eighth notes, make sure you're muffling. Any eighth note patterns like that, just make sure it's muffled. Half notes and whole notes, or anything like half note and longer, I generally will lift my hand off for a brief moment, or maybe put less pressure. That way it rings for just a little bit longer. If everything is truly muffled, then you kind of lose the difference between the note values. So my rule is quarter notes or faster, muffle. Anything longer than that, do not muffle. I'm going to grab a second beater. One thing that is in several of these pieces is bass drum rolls. I always play, I don't have matching beaters. You should definitely have matching beaters, but this is what we got, so we're making do with it. I always roll near the edge, and I roll, if it's like a soft moment or it's supposed to be kind of like a general thundery sound, make sure that you are playing loud enough and making it sound smooth. You do a single stroke roll, and since this is a big instrument, you do not have to roll very fast, but you do want to make sure there's some weight into the drum. It sounds like this. So let's say I have a roll that leads into like a big moment and it does not decrescendo. It might sound like this. Versus if I have a roll that would crescendo and then come back down to decrescendo, it's pretty self-explanatory. Just make sure that the mallets are not in the center because they might cancel each other out. Because drum heads work with vibrations, so we don't want to have them close together. But also it ensures that you have a smooth sound since it's on the edge. If it's near the center, it kind of gets more of a boomy, impacty sound. I think that really covers all the things for bass drum. Yeah, if there's any questions, feel free to ask.